Good afternoon, Katie. It's so good to talk with you about your work.
Thank you. Hi.
So can you start off by just talking a little bit about how you got into making this creature collage?
Well, I started when I was starting my art career. I was doing, big oil paintings, figurative, and then gradually I started adding in sort of, paper elements, collage elements, and then they became more surreal over time. And then I completely abandoned the oil paints and began to just work with paper. And I started cutting up my old book collection, my natural history books. I'm very drawn to science, natural history, zoology, botany, all of those types of books. And the creatures just came about, really.
You've shifted a little bit away from the creatures.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to ask first about your work with color, because I know you did a 100-day series recently. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I like the discipline of working with a color, so that the collage is based around one color. So back in April, I joined the 100-day project on Instagram, and I chose to do 100 days of paper hair color. So I looked at the hair color industry and found out there are so many colors. So each day I took one color and created a collage for that color. So it was really interesting. I went through all the blues, purples, reds, pinks. There was one called Unicorn, which is all different colors. There was a rainbow, obviously. And then there were also the natural browns, the red, ginger, coral, black. So it was a fascinating project. And I had a lot of material to work with. I didn't run out of ideas. I thought I might, but I didn't.
So it's interesting because, we talk a little bit about the surreal and bringing together things that might not be thought of as going together to start with.
Right.
But you also talk about color as an organizing principle. And I'm wondering, do you think of your work as having an order, or do you think of it as chaotic? I don't mean to have a negative connotation, but
yeah. It's actually, it's highly organized. I mean, I wish it wasn't, because I feel sometimes that I work in a very tight way, but I'm a very sort of organized person. I'm a bit of a neat freak. So I don't like chaos. I wish I did like chaos, because I think for some artists that really works for them. But for me, it's all about being organized from the start, where I cut out different elements and I arrange them in my flat files. So I have a drawer for bones, a drawer for flowers, a drawer for birds. And from that, I then, bring them to the paper and organize them in such a way that, works for me, or makes the creature or the composition that I want. So it is highly organized. I spend a lot of time cutting as well, cutting out of the books and then organizing what I've cut and putting it into the files. So I like my workspace to be really tidy as well. The chaos just doesn't work for me. I wish it did. I mean, but if I am working on a piece and then there's all the paper around me and the piles of paper, it does, I have to tidy it and, focus.
So recently you started doing some pieces that you called common objects of the microscope.
Yes.
And that is that work is much more spacious. Can you talk about that and how you made that shift?
Well, I found this very old book called Common Objects of the Microscope, and I loved the plates that were in the book, the illustrations, where they had arranged all these little objects very neatly on the page. And but you know, the page was full, and I loved that. So I went from really creating one creature or one object in the center of a book page, which was my kind of the way I did it, into making these very dense pages. So instead of just one creature, I may have 5 or 6 creatures. And it sort of, I don't know, it makes me look a little deeper. So I have to, you know, not only am I making the creatures, I'm having to arrange them, and I have to work out the space between them. It's a lot more intricate, but I really like that. And it also means I have to work smaller, and I really like working small. Like I like to challenge myself to cut something very tiny or intricate. So those have been what I've been working on at the moment. And those have also been an exploration of color too, because very often the composition will be one color, red, green. So yeah, those are what I'm working on right now.
What's one of your favorites in the new series that you're doing?
I just did one called Mrs. Moon, and that's actually going to be one of the ones that you're showing. And similar composition with many objects and images on one page, but they were all cut from stencils that I've made. And then they've all been cut from old book pages or exercise books, or I think there's old checks in there, ledger paper. So the color is very much what I like, sort of stained old book pages with foxing and muted kind of beiges and creams with the writing, because I have a big collection of just old recipe books, old school books, and it's fascinating reading them, going through them, going back in time. So that's one of my most recent pieces that I've done, which I really like.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing your exhibit.
Thank you, and thank you for having my work. I'm very excited about the show. Thank you. So yeah, so I do you want me to talk about it again?